Facebook, and it takes a little while to bring it up.
Okay, so about 10 seconds now. So you just let me know when you're ready for me to go live on People's Internet Radio.
Okay, well, I'm ready to go live now.
Okay, I'm going to fade out this song. I'm going to play a quick jingle, and then you'll be live.
Wonderful. That sounds good. It's a lovely day today. And whatever you've got to do, you've got a lovely day to do it. That's true.
Here we go.
And whatever you've got to do, it's something that can be done by two. For I'd really like to stay.
Emily, you're live.
Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, my friends, depending where you are. I'm Emily Windsor Craig, and this is History Reset. Now, where I am, it's 1 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time on June the 27th already. We're almost past June 2020. History Reset is brought to you each Saturday for valuable information to the public that the corporate media refuse to divulge. In fact, academia doesn't divulge this stuff either. This program is a public service, but please donate to People's Internet Radio to keep the people's truth coming at you without commercial adverts. Hi, Chris. Okay, well, this week has been phenomenal. I have two new friends who are expansive minds, and they know all kinds of stuff that I don't know. And so I'm picking their brains, and they're picking my brains, and we're just having a wonderful time at it. And what Richard's strong suit is in Paleo Hebrew, and he is a messianic, sort of a messianic Jew. And what Angela is into is publishing books on KDP like I do, and she has her book and I have mine. And so we're really arcing and sparking this week, really having a good time. In the meantime, the national atmosphere is morose. It's awful. And I don't want to be like that. I don't want to stay that way. So what Richard and I got talking about, because he wasn't up to speed on the cosmology that I've been able to synthesize from all my sources, the Voyager's 2 profane history of humanity, and the Sumerian cuneiform tablets Anunnaki story of humanity, which matches the Bible, which is like the Oahspe, but like the Urantia book, what Richard and I are mutually discovering is that our experience as charismatics, I've been a charismatic since the 70s, and he has been since he was born, is that the process of being born again is a repetitive process. It's a lot like the stations of the cross, because every time we come to a mental obstacle, choice, decision, covenant, vow, or something, and we go through the prayer of should I do this or that, once the decision is made and the consent is given and the vow is in place, our mind enlarges a little bit and we move on to a new station of our thinking. And this is why some of us who enlarge our consciousness day by day drive people crazy. We drive them crazy. And that's naturally because the society teaches that you're a child until age 18, and then at 21 you become an adult. And then you know everything, and you don't have to learn anything anymore. You're finished. Whoops. All right. And it was my circumstance that I grew up in a foster family like that. They believed that they were adults and they knew everything that they needed to know in order to lead their lives. And they didn't want anybody questioning what they knew. Okay? They didn't want anybody questioning first principles. They didn't want anybody questioning their sources. And that's what I was there to do. Okay? And so as I grew up, there were a few people like myself who grew into and out of facts in order to progress my identity from very, very slow and very stuck and very provincial to gradually enlarge my consciousness until I could accept racial diversity, gender dysphoria, conflict analysis, okay, until I could get my mind around these larger ways of seeing. I hope I'm making some sense here. All right. And one of the areas that I found really get short shrift in the scientism department is, what does our world actually consist of? Now that sounds absurd, okay. But if you look at NASA GoPro photos, they always depict the world that we live on as a spinning sphere. There's just one problem with that from my perspective. I don't know. Do you have a washing machine in your house? Is there a washing machine in your house? Okay. Then what happens to the water in the washing machine when it goes into spin cycle? The water spins off. Okay. If we lived on a spinning ball, what would happen to the water that's down by Antarctica? It would be spinning off. Ta-da! So we don't live on a spinning ball. Now, do we live on a flat pizza? Well, no. Why? Because of the amount and number of tunneling. Have you looked at the deep underground military bases tunneled miles under the ground? There's volcanoes miles under the ground. There's waterways miles under the ground. There's these huge holes in the ground. Well, if the world's a pizza, that's not possible. So what is it? If we're not living on a pizza, we're not living on a bowl, what are we living on? Okay, so today on here at Facebook, what I've done is put a couple of graphics. And the most recent one is 2 pictures of our universe that I got off official astronomy sites. Okay. And so we can kind of talk about, well, what are we looking at here? We have it's a picture of a donut, okay? There's a donut, and then there's a picture of looks like a swirled pastry, okay? And the swirled pastry shows a circle in the center with 12 galaxies around it, okay? Does this make sense? Have you ever heard of the 12 signs of the zodiac? Okay, and those are the 12 galaxies around the central universe. Ta-da! And where our world is supposed to be, okay, up at the ecliptic with all the other planets, right? That's where it's supposed to be. That's where the Pleiadians and the Andromedans think it still is. A lot of the races and cultures in the universe don't know that our world is no longer up at the ecliptic where it belongs, but something happened. Something happened, and the Sumerian cuneiform tablets talk about the time when Nibiru was coming back, as it does every 3,657 years, coming back to this sector of the galaxy, and ran into a destruction derby between Mars and Jupiter, I believe, and Earth and Nibiru, and Tiamat got into this destruction derby Earth was shattered like a crystal. Okay, that's the asteroid belt. And what was left of Tiamat was sent down to the floor of the universe cavity, which is all ice and water. And that's why what we know of as our world is surrounded by ice and water, because that's where what's left of Tiamat is sitting. So no, we're not a pizza. No, we're not a spinning ball. And we have pictures to show exactly what the universe looks like that are accurate. But what they don't show is that our world is sitting on the floor under Polaris, in what is called in Voyager's 2 by Ashiana Dean, the abyss down on the floor. Okay. And this is why we get so much company down here. People, UFOs coming to check us out. This is why we have a lot of asteroids and meteors falling to the bottom of the floor. All right. Now, does that make a little more sense? Okay. Now, back to the whole picture of the universe. Okay. We just finished. I don't know where we get this feedback, but I would really like to stop it. This feedback has got to stop. It's got to go bye-bye. And I'll bet you know. Where's that feedback coming from? Does anybody know? We've got a feedback problem. Oh, I can't fix it. Okay. Because I don't understand where it's coming from. Well, we'll just roll with it. All right, so here we are on the floor of the abyss. And if we were up on the ecliptic, we'd be moving around with all of the planets, but we're not on the floor. Not on the ecliptic, we're on the floor. So all the planets are moving around over us. And Pisces, the galaxy of Pisces just went by, and Aquarius is here. Okay. And that's why this is now the Age of Aquarius. Okay. And it's a completely different mentality. The Age of Aquarius is the jurisdiction of the prime directive, which says that one civilization is not allowed to interfere in the affairs of another civilization. Now, that directive is in direct contradiction to the El Anu Treaty, which was signed after the Lyran Wars by the Christos founders and the Anu Elohim, which says that superior races can call and enslave inferior races. That treaty of the El Anu became the model for the treaty that Eisenhower signed in 1954 called the Greada Treaty. And I'll give you the link to the Greada, the information on the Greada Treaty. Okay, so that Eisenhower bought into the predatory ethics of the Age of Pisces, but we are now in the Age of Aquarius, where that treaty is considered to be a form of protection racket, piracy, slavery, and so forth. So the treaties we have, the trade treaties specifically, that satisfy the jurisdiction of the previous age now violate the norms and law of the current Age of Aquarius. That's why this is supposed to be peaceful. It's not. And that's why it's not. Because maritime admiralty law based on those commercial treaties violates laws of the land which call for harmlessness and conflict analysis and resolution. And that's why our world is in a mess. Now, to make things a little more complicated, as if they were not complicated enough, All right. About 700 years ago, a craft crashed here that carried on it some members of the central universe. They were called the domain, and they came here to play. They came here to have a good time. They came here to see what they could do. 46 of the members of that party were creative sylphs. And after they got here, the Renaissance started up. The Renaissance, the Crusades, the Inquisitions, the really deep conflicts started up because those space travelers who came here for some adventure. And we are still living with the adventures that they created. Now, that particular story has been suppressed since 1947 until Lawrence Spencer, I guess it was only about 5 years ago, he published the transcript by Miss McElroy, the nurse who took down all the notes from the ET. But he published it as a genre in UFO studies with the idle question, well, we wonder if this is real or not. He never really confronted what the ET was telling him about our history, which blew me apart because it explained where the Renaissance came from. It explained where the Tartarian civilization came from. It explained all that so that the movement, the sudden movement of human civilization, particularly what is called the Enlightenment, where that came from, took us into levels of conflict that are only now beginning to simmer down a little bit, And I'll give you the link to the transcript book down below too, There's a lot of material here. So our world has not merely been dealing with the conflict between metaphysical wisdom at the 5th D level versus human problem solving at the 3rd D level. But we've had this intrusion of cosmic creativity here that totally overwhelmed our entire system now for the past 700 to 500 years. And when the domain came here, they came here and established their particular cosmology and their beliefs about physics and their beliefs about science, which we find out now are not exactly true to causes and effects in time, space, and location. All right. So for us humans living here now, we have a history that doesn't bear out in archaeology and paleontology. We have law that doesn't bear out in any consistency or coherence because it's fighting between the trade treaties versus the human rights and laws of the land. We have medical science that's caught between healing strategies that are non-invasive versus sorcery and druggery and interventions. We have an education system that teaches theories and comparisons of theories and hypotheses and lemmas and so on. We have a system in which what's true is generally between the lines, which is a scary proposition for people who just want to know what's going on here, And that's why now that the problems and the chaos have reached a crescendo of trouble, particularly since the media do not fulfill the function of reporting on what is true. They report from their agenda of what ought to be true if this is where we're going. Okay. You see why people are confused right now? People are really confused. But there is hope in this pile of stuff. There is hope. For one thing, what has happened is waking people up to the reality that nothing we're told is true. And when that happens, you just kind of sit back and say, oh, you mean I don't have to believe anything? I can just kind of figure this out for myself? Cool. And we all become learners. We're all learners in school now, reporting to each other in the alternative media. Did you hear about this? Did you hear about that? Okay. And that apparently has taken hold to the effect that political events are being staged by these two factions over the heads of the political leaders. Now, who are these two factions? Okay, you've already heard that on one side are the Illuminati and the Masonic orders and the chivalric orders, and on the other side are, quote, white hats, covert ops, and intel people who've pulled away from the self-destructive and self-suicidal methods of the left. Okay, we've looked at the methods of the left, and whether you're talking about the Frankfurt School or the Fabians or the Milner Kindergarten or Saul Alinsky or Karl Marx, it's all about simply financing the destruction of the civil order that exists wherever you are. It doesn't matter whether your civil order is a monarchy, a democracy, a republic, or a mafia. Okay, even the mafias are being manhandled by the cabal trying to control everything with one set of rules. The one set of rules that the New World Order wants to impose on everybody is commercial law, in which human beings are expendable, consumable products. Human beings have no recognition, have no acknowledgement for having a soul under the New World Order mandate. Okay. And the commercial laws which they allow include secrecy and treachery straight out of the Roman Empire, which stated that if a man wants to be deceived, let him be deceived. That's imperial ethic. If a man allows himself to be deceived, let him be deceived. That's not the same as the ethic of the planetary sovereign, whose name is Yahweh, is in our scriptures, which is the same guy who created the Anunnaki a million years prior to our world. You know, Yahweh is the God of the Anunnaki also, and that's why the Catholic Church mirrors the Anunnaki culture, because the Catholic Church is an extension of the Anunnaki culture. A lot of people don't realize that. And of course, that includes a lot of the Babylonian stuff, the sacrificial stuff, all right? This gets complicated, all right? But there's a way out of this. There's a way out of the suffering. And that's to revert to third dimensional thinking, causes and effects, relationships. Relationships and our loyalty to our own world, our own word and our own world. Let our no mean no and our yes mean yes. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. The ethic that we exercise is the behavior and the outcomes that we are going to create, whether that will determine whether we are judged as good or as harmful, okay? And so by our reverting to third dimensional ethics, which is as a builder, you have to buy your bricks and buy your mortar and put the bricks in the mortar brick by brick. You have to build your relationships word by word and gesture by gesture and transaction by transaction. You build your business customer by customer and interaction by interaction to strictly stay to third dimensional ethics for now, wherein you only operate from what's true, and you let all these beliefs, and there are as many ideascapes as we have identities for, okay? There's LGBT, and there's the red pill, and there's the blue pill, and there's the liberal, and there's the conservative, and there's the anarchist, and there's the, I mean, pick your label. Let's not use these labels now because the labels are out of control in the media, in the movies. No. The way we get through this is one foot in front of the other, staying loyal to our relationships, our honest transactions, the honest outcomes that we are going to create, the methods that we know of that work for people and not that take advantage of people or harm people. This is how we get through an apocalypse, because an apocalypse is what we're seeing. I don't know how many of you are aware of what is going on in China. Now, China is a totalitarian, top-down, tyrannical superstate. And they have been experiencing an apocalypse, 15 days of torrential rain, 15 feet of water overrunning everything. It's almost like the flood of Noah's day. Oh my. I just got a message. And I'll answer questions. This is what happens when I get going too much. China, after 15 days of solid rain, is in danger of its dams breaking. And if that happens, 400 million people will be gone. Okay? That's what's going on in China. Karma has shown up in China. Knows the Chinese government has been using innocent people of the Zhuang Falun sect as sources for body parts to sell. They had the one-child policy for 40 years, so now they have 2 generations of young men who are emperors who cannot marry because there are no women to marry. The policies of the People's Republic of China have come home to roost. And I have a policy: never interfere with someone who's making a fool of himself. Okay? China right now is eating crow, is seeing the results and effects of their inhumane policies. And what I'm hoping is that when people revert to simple cause and effect ethics and cease trying to influence and dominate other people, I'm going to have to call it a day because my voice is shot. when we revert to simple one-to-one ethics. That's how we're going to get through this. Steve, I've got to call it off. My voice is giving up. I'll see you guys later.
Okay, Emily.
All right, we'll talk more later. I gotta go. Bye-bye.